It's not easy being green, having to spend each day in the color of the leaves.
Hello, I'm Tom Brown, your host. Today on GreenTV is part 3 of David Cobb's speech at IUSB this past February 2004. The IUSB Political Science Club and the St. Joe Valley Greens invited Cobb, one of the leading presidential candidates for nomination by the Green Party of the United States, to speak to the Michiana public about his candidacy, the Green Party, and progressive politics. From the Green point of view, the political debate in the United States is much wider than what you see and hear in mainstream media. Our purpose at GreenTV is to increase both the width and depth of discussion on issues which are important to us as local citizens, national citizens, and international citizens. So, friends and viewers, here is part 3 of David Cobb's speech. We hope you enjoy listening to Cobb as he responds to questions from the Michiana audience. And we also hope you participate in the political process at all levels and vote.
That's the short answer. Yes, sir.
How would a Green president work with Congress? By mandate?
Well, again, when a Green Party president has been elected, that will reflect a very broad and deep political realignment in this country, and not just a political realignment, but a profound cultural change in this country. So, by that time, there'll be Greens in Congress. And what we'll see is, and we'll be moving towards proportional representation, and we'll have a genuinely multi-party, pluralistic society. Now, so I don't believe ever that, quote, mandating is really the best way to go. I really believe in working in collaboration and whenever possible.
We're just supposing there was a Green president with no representation to speak of in Congress.
Well, in that case, the president, and let's just say I get elected president and there is nobody in U.S. Congress. The answer is I would not mandate anything from Congress. I would keep the veto pen very, very busy to try to make sure that the U.S. Congress didn't continue to take us further against away. And I would use the bully pulpit to educate citizens about what's really going on in this country. Okay, here and then back here.
How can Americans right now translate more green ideals into specific actions in our communities?
Well, here's an example. The question is, how are Greens right now either are doing or can we?
After tonight, what should I do in my community for more green ideals?
Well, all right, that's fair. I wish I had like, okay, 1, 2, 3 is sort of an easy step. But I will tell you that when Greens get elected to office, I mean, we have to build the political power in order to exercise it. Greens in office have led the charge in the anti-patriot resolution movement. There are 250 cities and communities across the country who have passed Anti-Patriot Act resolutions. Almost all of them, in the beginning stages, almost all of them were being led by Greens who were serving in elected capacity. And in Arcata, California, led by Greens, they passed the first ever local ordinance nullifying the provisions of the Patriot Act that allow for sneak and peek and allow the federal government to look at university students' records without their knowledge. And it says, under the local law, we in Arcata find these following provisions of the Patriot Act to be an unconstitutional infringement of the civil liberties of the citizens of this community, and therefore instruct in our community none of the officials at the library or at the university or in the police department may comply with them. So that's the kind of thing that can happen whenever we begin to exercise political power. In addition to that, also in Arcata, instead of a wastewater treatment plant that uses the toxic chemicals and so forth, there is a freshwater marsh, a filtration system that actually works, and that actually filters the water and actually supplies drinking water. It's a closed-loop system that actually works, and in fact, the Audubon Society brings people on tours of their wastewater treatment facility.
al-Qaeda, and I didn't even know that.
How about that? So there are lots of things that we can do and do. It includes bringing sustainable energy. It includes working on living wage campaigns.
Yes.
And so if you go to the website again at www.votecobb.org, there's a list of those kind of things.
Every other oppressed peoples in the history of the world, I mean, as far back as written history that I can find, has risen up and gotten rid of any oppressive leadership on their own, which is their right to do so. Nobody asked us to come in and do that.
And in fact, if you look at the record, the U.S. funded and armed the Taliban and Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just so absurd. I mean, I'm not saying that you're being absurd, but I cannot, so let me apologize if it's coming off that way. I really want to be respectful to you. But I cannot for the life of me see the argument that says that, oh, well, we actually went there in order to liberate anybody, when we actually created those regimes, funded those regimes, armed those regimes. It doesn't make sense to me. And I really appreciate your comment because it's really true. I mean, history does show us that left to their own devices and being able to do so, oppressed people throw off repressive regimes. Which is why, by the way, I'm sure that in this country, we're going to throw off this oppressive regime. And I'm dead serious. The difference is, and I'm committed to this is going to be a nonviolent social justice evolutionary revolution. We're going to reach out and educate people about a new way of doing politics. We're going to reach out and educate people about this new idea. It's actually a very ancient idea, based on matriarchal societies instead of patriarchal societies. We're going to reach out and show people what we are relearning in the Green Party, what our ancestors knew very well, which is power with instead of power over. Instead of me having to convince you that you're right or otherwise beat you down so that I can get my way, we're going to teach and show and demonstrate with our actions the capacity for power with, where we're respectful for each other, and if we have to ultimately agree to disagree, we will, but we're going to make a genuine effort to find common ground everywhere that we can. That's the kind of movement that I want to be part of, and you know what? I know I'm already part of it in the Green Party when I go to Green Party meetings. And let's remember this, I know that sometimes Green Party meetings can seem tedious and difficult, but you know why? Partly because we're experimenting with power with in a system and a culture and a society where we never have experience with it. Right? We're trying democracy in a country where we don't know how to do it. This country, we always talk about the American democracy, but you know what? We're a bit like the grandchildren of immigrants who are always talking about the old country when we've never even been there. Yes, sir.
Okay, to follow up on that, suppose the automobile was largely displaced by mass transit. What would you do for displaced auto workers, for instance?
Mm-hmm. Well, here's an interesting phenomenon. The reality is this, that in order to build the infrastructure for a good, efficient transportation system would be an incredible jobs opportunity, and not only for U.S. steel workers and the foundries necessary to build all that infrastructure, but also for all the infrastructure for it. I mean, let's remember this, though, and I want to reframe it a little bit, because we need, the economy is supposed to serve people's needs. People are not supposed to be slavishly serving the economy. So what I'm saying is, there is no reason, if we have the kind of movement that I want to be part of, and it's successful, and it's that broad and that deep, it's not just a political shift, but a genuine cultural shift, we'll start moving in the area of saying, okay, how can we ensure that everybody doesn't just have a job, but how do they have meaningful work? Work, because everybody actually wants to work. Most people hate their current jobs because this system is so crappy. But everybody wants to work. People want to know that they are engaged in labor and endeavor that is noble and good and helping to create a better society. They want that. I'm absolutely convinced that that's true. That's how perverse this system is, that we've got it arranged such that people are competing with themselves for jobs that they hate in order to just survive in this economy. We've got real deep systemic problems, but I'm convinced that collectively we can solve all these things if we go about doing the slow work of brick by brick building the movement necessary in order to achieve it.
Yeah, I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about your statement that George Bush stole the election, other than the fact that there is an electoral college rather than a popular democratic voting system, which both candidates knew before they got in. And many people, including me, actually predicted that Gore would win the electoral college and lose the popular vote. And I wonder if your sense that Bush stole the election would be the, or that Gore stole the election would be the same if that had happened, the reverse.
No, well, actually, just to clear it up, it's not because Gore won the popular vote but lost the electoral college that I make the claim. It's actually this. We know that Jeb Bush and Kathleen Harris engaged in the systematic purging of hundreds of thousands of African American voters illegally, right? There was a conspiracy to do that. Check out the film Unprecedented, and it lays it out. Or read Greg Palast's book, and it lays it out. Or read Jews for Buchanan, it's a cute name, huh? Jews for Buchanan, by John Nichols, and he also lays it out. So there was a conspiracy to steal that election from the beginning. In addition, even after that, here's a secret. Al Gore won Florida's electoral college votes, and a full recount would have proven that. Remember that the U.S. Supreme Court stopped a recount from going on. I'm sorry?
Did the paper continue that?
Yeah, the paper continues. So we know that in fact, with no doubt, that actually, with a full recount of all the votes in Florida, Al Gore won. We also know, by the way, that Republican operatives from across the country, legislative aides to Republican members of the U.S. Congress, were flown into Florida. And at Miami-Dade, did any of y'all see those pictures of those people pounding on the doors, stopping the recount? Folks, like half of the people in front were all paid legislative aides of current members, or then current members, of Republican members of Congress. That was not an upwelling of voters in Florida. That was a conspiracy to stop the recount from happening. So when I say that the election was stolen, I'm not actually talking. You're right. You and I agree. Or I would say that the electoral college itself is undemocratic. But you know what? If George Bush had won the electoral college, then I would not say that he's illegitimate. Even if Al Gore had won the popular vote, I would say we need to abolish the electoral college and have a one national election to elect the president. But I wouldn't say that it had been stolen otherwise.
The smaller corporations are probably paying their fair share of taxes anyway because they are small. They
Yeah.
can't afford the lawyers to find the loopholes.
Here's one way to look at this. Are you familiar with Adam Smith?
Adam Smith, there's...
No. Adam Smith wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations. And in The Wealth of Nations, many people argue that Adam Smith laid out actually the entire life. In fact, he coined the term the invisible hand of the free market. He invented that term. Adam Smith is the one who said, he said a couple of things that were interesting. One, I'll paraphrase because I don't know the quote exactly, but it goes something like this. Never does the merchant class gather together, even for mirth and diversion, but that the topic of conversation becomes a contrivance to raise prices or otherwise assault the interest of the working class. He also said, it is government's responsibility, nay, its sacred duty, to ensure that no business enterprise gets so large that it can actually manipulate the workings of the invisible hand of the market. You see, Adam Smith understood and knew that in order to actually have a market economy, you need competition, but you also need competition in a way that nobody is so large and big and powerful economically that they can oppress and pound down other people. It doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. That's what leads to monopolies. That's why we have the antitrust era in this country. And you know what? Under existing laws right now, we could be using antitrust, and we could actually be getting back down to smaller scale economies where there would be more work for all of us, where we would be producing not only goods and services, but also have meaningful work for all of us, and we could do it in a way that's sustainable. Because you know what? Right now, this current system is killing the planet, and it is going to die. And America, U.S. and world population is going to die as well if we don't stop the suicide death march that the current economic system is engaged in. And there's just no doubt about that. And you know what? In terms of global climate change, it's not just people like from the Green Party, but the Pentagon is saying that it's true, and so is the reinsurance industry saying it's true, because they're on the hook for tens of billions or trillions, hundreds of billions of dollars, and they're very nervous. We got to do something about the runaway suicide death march that is this economic engine that expects unlimited growth forever. That's just not possible in the real world. There's only one thing that this design looks like. You know what that is? Cancer. On that happy. All right, very, very quick. Last question.
Well, I'm just wondering if you have a particular Secretary of State that you might call, and I did want to see what your recommendations were for conflict resolution in Haiti.
Well, in Haiti and anywhere else in the world, I mean, conflict resolution is something that can only be done whenever we've actually got people that are there. I will acknowledge that I don't know enough, because I don't have enough data to really know exactly what's going on there, because the information is too confused. For Secretary of State, though, it's actually, here's a quick little run. If it was me or anybody else, a Green Party cabinet, Noam Chomsky, Secretary of State, Molly Ivins, Press Secretary, Jim Hightower, Secretary of Agriculture. You'll forgive me for having two Texans on that list. Ron Daniels for Attorney General. Actually, you know what? Ralph Nader for Attorney General.
Wow.
There you go.
Ron Daniels.
That was before Sunday.
Hunter and Avery Lovins for Secretary of Transportation. David Corton for Secretary of Commerce. Fact of the matter is, folks, there are solutions to all the problems that face this country, and equally, there are people much more skilled and knowledgeable than I am that would be able to head up every single department in this country and to begin to implement those solutions. All we have to do is build the party and the political will to push it. Continue to build the social change movement in this country, and we will continue to build the Green Party. And when we continue to build the Green Party, we'll continue to elect more people to office. And what's really unique about the Green Party is we want not just to elect Greens to office, but we want genuine multi-party democracy so that everybody has a voice, including people who don't agree with us. We want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard and represented, not only in Congress, but in the state legislature and on city councils. You know, that makes us unique, our commitment to genuine democracy. None of the establishment parties have that commitment. The Green Party does. I'm proud to be a member of the Green Party. I'm seeking the Green Party's nomination for president, and I'd like your support as well. Yeah. Thank you for coming out. And frankly, what's interesting to me is if we do our work in the Green Party correctly and do it well, we get to the point where we can't be bought off with any issue. I mean, you can't buy us off with universal health care or living wage or anything else, because what we're saying is we want genuine democracy. And genuine democracy is going to mean changing the voting system, changing the rules, and ultimately changing laws like corporate personhood and other legal doctrines that are allowing corporations to hijack our government. Because at the end of the day, if we get that, it's a complete win for me. Because I don't really, I want to win all of my issues, but I mean this very sincerely. I don't have to win all my issues. If I get the chance to actually reasonably and fairly participate, and then I lose, then I say, you know what? I've lost lots of votes, I've lost lots of effort, but if I felt like I actually had an opportunity to be heard and that the rules were fair, losing doesn't bother me. I mean, it's how the system works. And here's something. I believe that Howard Dean was transformed by his own experience. In other words, when he first started, he was not actually articulating genuine progressive issues. I mean, but I think that through the course of the tactics of getting people into the campaign and feeling the energy, he began to really go through a genuine transformation as a candidate himself. And it's very interesting to me that that enthusiasm, the energy, and the rhetoric of progressive politics and populism is what really started to generate. I mean, he had a 20-point lead, right? So here's the other shoe to drop. I believe that I can pinpoint exactly when the Howard Dean campaign was doomed to failure. It was 2.5 weeks before the Iowa caucus. Howard Dean was on Hardball with Chris Matthews. Howard Dean, this man who had been transformed by this process and been seeing it, had the audacity on that corporate media source and channel to say, I believe that we need to dismantle and break up the corporate media conglomerates in this country. And the next day, within 24 hours, you began, and really it was for the first time ever, the incessant drumbeat of the talking heads saying, Howard Dean is not electable. Howard Dean can't beat George Bush. Huh, interesting point, Mike. Mike, what do you think about the fact that Howard Dean can't beat George Bush? Well, Jim, I'm glad you asked me why Howard Dean can't beat George Bush. It's certainly true that Howard Dean can't beat George Bush. I wonder what Democratic primary voters are thinking about, that they're about to nominate somebody who can't beat George Bush. Sue, what do you think about the fact that Howard Dean can't Bush? What does it say about the Democratic Party that they're about to nominate somebody who can't beat George Bush? Sue says, well, Tom, it's interesting because out here in Iowa, people are really concerned about beating George Bush. I don't know if they really thought about the fact that Howard Dean can't beat George Bush. So the fact that Howard Dean can't beat George Bush, the fact is, folks, the media manufactured consent around the idea that Howard Dean couldn't beat George Bush. And here's something else. Here's another bit of evidence for that. If you look at the polls now from voters in Iowa, in New Hampshire, in all the places where exit polling has been done, Howard Dean wins on almost every issue. Like on how do you, your position on, your position on, your position on, your position on. There's only one category, only one question that Howard Dean loses. And that is for people who think that their most important thing is electability. Folks, they created this notion of electability. Let me say this, that if I'm the Green Party's nominee for President of the United States, that I will either participate in the Commission on Presidential Debates or I will be arrested attempting to do so. I am totally willing to engage in nonviolent civil disobedience when it is appropriate. This is definitely appropriate.
Absolutely.
Let's be clear about this, though. The current Commission on Presidential Debates is actually a private corporation that was created by the Democratic and Republican parties. It is completely funded by big corporate money, Budweiser and R.J. Reynolds Tobacco. It's just obscene, right? I mean, this would be a Saturday Night Live skit if it wasn't so serious.
Yeah.
And the debates are not even debates. They're completely stage managed and scripted. The candidates are the ones who get to completely control the format. The candidates are the ones who get to decide who the questioners are being, and the candidates get to know what the questions are going to be in advance. That's not a debate. Right? It's a script. It's a script. It's an amazing phenomenon that we're allowing this to happen. But I'm proud to tell you that there's a new organization called Open Debates, and they have helped to create a new entity called the Citizens Debate Commission. And the Citizens Debate Commission, which the board of directors, by the way, includes people from all across the political spectrum, from Randall Robinson, who founded Trans Africa, to Bae Buchanan, sister of Pat Buchanan. Common Cause. We've got the Heritage Foundation. You know, we've got, it's a long list. Check them out at opendebates.org. It's a great organization, and they're creating the Citizens Debate Commission that is actually going to go about the process of building an alternative forum that says, we are not going to let the candidates actually script this thing. We want to have real debates where there's a criterion. Anybody who meets the criterion is going to be invited to attend, and also they're not going to know the questions in advance, and we're going to make sure that a broad range of questions are asked, not just the so-called progressive questions that are not being asked, but also the questions that libertarians don't think are being asked. I mean, a whole range of questions to ensure that there's a robust, real, genuine democratic debate.
Okay, David Cobb has just finished his presentation here at IUSB. David Cobb, as we reiterated earlier, is a candidate for the Green Party presidency nomination. And we're going to go through the crowd a little bit and ask people what they thought about David's speech and why they're here tonight. These are some of the folks that came tonight to listen to David Cobb speak. And tell me what's your name? Alfonso, and what brought you here tonight? Okay, do you feel like that was accomplished?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty interesting.
What will you take away from here that you didn't have when you walked in the door?
Basically everything. I'm kind of new to this kind of stuff, so I kind of enjoyed it.
Okay, cool. Well, that's great to hear. Did you have any preconceived notions about what this meeting would be like tonight?
Oh yeah, I knew what it would be about. I just thought I'd come to, you know, check out, just to see what his actual personal, you know, platform would be.
Okay, was there anything that surprised you or made you think twice?
Well, not really. I kind of knew, you know, what all this was about. It just, you know, to get more people involved in what a third party or the Green Party itself was about.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your... Corey, can you tell me what you brought away from here tonight?
I learned a lot about, actually I haven't been following the race at all until I came here. My friend Betsy brought me, and I was more interested in the, about union work and stuff, and I was glad to hear what he had to say about that.
Okay, how much do you think the guys that you're in school with or your buddies pay attention to what's going on in politics?
Well, I'm working right now, actually. I'm not in school, but being in a union, we're really attuned to that. You know, most back Democrats, and that's what I usually vote, but it was interesting seeing this side, definitely.
Okay, well, thank you so much, guys. It was great to see you out here tonight, and remember, if you ever do get a chance to vote Green, make sure you do it. Thanks. Kind of going to listen into these two gentlemen over here talking politics.
4 or 5.
Excuse me? Keep talking, gentlemen. I'm just eavesdropping.
If you look at a graph of the national debt clock, since the 1900s till about 1982, it was, you know, just pretty steady. When Reagan was in office, jumps. You start getting that slope. And when Clinton was in there, still going. And then Bush got in, and it's still going. But everyone keeps blaming.
Clinton balanced it.
There's a pretty big slope there. It's still going.
Sure.
Like the national.
But they have to run that deficit. If they don't run the deficit, the system crashes. And
this is democracy in action, folks. This is why we do it. It's great to hear these two guys who are obviously on opposite sides of the political spectrum having a nice conversation and agreeing to disagree. Again, thank you for your attendance tonight. I'm David Kaiser, St. Joe Valley Greens and Green TV.